Did you know that you can buy your car completely online on AutoTrader? Really? Just visit autotrader.com, filter and search through dealer listings for the car you want, make, model, color, and all the features that matter to you. Go ahead, get picky. Whether you're into subcompacts with heated cup holders, crossovers with all-wheel drive, pickups with kicking sound systems, or SUVs that can survive whatever chaos your kids unleash. Just drop in your info and you'll only see cars in your budget. Really. Once you find your one and only, you can do the whole deal online and have the car delivered to your driveway. Or you can pick it up at the dealership and drive your new ride right off the lot. Really. AutoTrader makes it easy to buy your car online because the whole process is designed around your wants and must-haves. AutoTrader. Buy your car online. Really.
Welcome back to Come Back with a Warrant podcast. I'm Brandon Dinitz.
And I'm Monica Shack. Before we kickstart this week's episode, this is your reminder that this podcast is not legal advice. It's real, unfiltered, and for entertainment purposes only. If you need to speak with a lawyer, call one. Or better yet, call us. Welcome back. Today we have a very special guest, Lyric White. She is a devoted mother and wife with a powerful passion for justice, reform, and redemption. Currently a senior at Florida Atlantic University, majoring in criminal justice, Lyric brings both academic insight and lived experience to her work. Her commitment to this field is deeply personal, shaped by the challenges her own family has faced navigating the justice system. Drawing strength from her husband's incarceration and the impact it had on their lives, Lyric has transformed hardship into purpose. She uses her experience to advocate for meaningful change, championing prison reform, second chances, and fair treatment for incarcerated individuals and their families. A dedicated voice for the unheard, Lyric is driven by a mission to ensure that no family is left without hope, dignity, or justice. Welcome, Lyric.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Yes. We have a lot to talk about, I think, before we get started in, we're even sitting here today. You were a part of a reentry program prior to any of your personal experience with the justice system. Is that right?
Yes.
So maybe we can just start from there. How did you even get involved in reentry?
So originally, incarceration has kind of always been a part of my life, not firsthand, like family members, cousins, things like that. My cousin does run a nonprofit and I joined her board. It was kind of just like, hey, I need people on my board that are going to do whatever I say. So I was like, okay, fine. Joined with her and I would go to meetings, help her out. And, I really had a passion for it, but I still had my own 9 to 5 and I couldn't devote as much as she could. And then my husband, everything happened with him and I kind of got a new sight of what it was really like. And that's how I kind of turned into where I am now.
Yeah. So what was your perspective before everything happened? When you were involved in reentry?
It was rough for me, especially with the transitional housing. They're not in good areas where you're allowed to run one. So you have a lot of people that come home from prison and they're still battling addiction. And the only place that they can live is right next to a drug house. So they know they can step outside and they're going to go get high again. We had one guy that actually jumped out of the bathroom window at the transitional house because he went and got something and got high. So he wasn't allowed to stay. A lot of things like that. There was one guy that actually got clean, was able to buy himself a car. He maintained a job. So you see it from both angles. There are very good success stories. And then, there are people that it's hard for them.
Yeah. So you never had a personal experience with reentry?
No. My dad did go to prison a few times. He lived in Michigan and wasn't really a part of my life. And it would be a year and a day because he would get in trouble for bad checks, things like that, just trying to get high. But he didn't live here, so I didn't get to experience it firsthand. It was very much out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And if he was clean, I would hear from him. And if he relapsed, you wouldn't hear from him until he was clean again. Or if he was in prison, then I'd get a letter. But other than that, no, not when it came to reentry.
Yeah. You felt the effects of of him being clean and then not.
Yeah, right. Which now as an adult, I hear a lot of stories for people that supported the habit or they're getting robbed by their son, their sister, brother, spouse. And it's I'm glad that I didn't witness any of that in a way.
You were protected, kind of.
Yeah, I feel he had a little bit of pride. He was able to hide that side of him.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for it. He's no longer alive, but it's okay. Yeah. He finally got clean. And then he had heart failure from all the years of it. But,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
The reentry program that you were first, I guess, that you're still associated with is specific to prison release reentry?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I always wonder because, you have people that spend a significant amount of time in jail also, that even though it's less than a year, when they get out, there's still that need for them to be put back in the community and get back their lives or start developing a way for them to get back into society. So it's interesting to hear that it's only prisoners. But how long ago did you first get involved?
So my cousin's been involved for like 5 years. I got involved later on once she actually had the transitional house, because a lot of what it is resources, leaning on other people, making partnerships. Hey, I can refer you to this person. This person can do this for you. For example, housing. The housing has to come from somebody else willing to pay for you to stay in the transitional housing.
Yeah.
So somewhere like the Lord's Place, Gulfstream, Goodwill, they're paying to put you in that house. My experience, we wouldn't ever turn anyone away, but most people coming out of jail, they're not having somewhere to stay or live, clothes, things like that we will give, but we find that people have more of a need that are coming home from prison.
Yeah.
But we do help them. We wouldn't ever say no.
Right.
But if they call and they're like, hey, do you know anybody that can offer a job? Like one of the people she was really connected with was a regional manager for Dunkin' Donuts. So she was able to get people jobs at Dunkin' Donuts, things like that. It's just really making partnerships because it's more of like resources.
Right. And you're talking about bringing in most likely convicted felons to be re-entered into society, and the idea of making sure that they have gainful employment and meet criteria, because a lot of these people, correct me if I'm wrong, have criteria that they have to meet in order to be out and remain out, and to avoid getting in trouble, you've got to get on the right path. So these programs are so important. That's great that they have the job resources, because I imagine that's got to be the number one, aside from housing, the number one issue has got to be the jobs.
Right. And then housing, they're only paying for you to stay there for maybe 60 days at the most.
That's
from
temporary.
that point on, you are able to pay for yourself to remain there. We've had that before where the guy that got a job, he was able to pay for himself to stay there.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So,
yeah, that's amazing.
And what's the name of the program?
It's the Victory Program.
When we're going to have Victoria, who's the founder of the Victory Program, hopefully on another episode. But thank you so much for the work that you do in the Victory Program and in our community, because that's super important. And like, hopefully we can continue like expanding and contributing in the ways that, we can in the community. So, but I also wanted to talk obviously more about your personal story. And your background with your husband. You chose to study, correct me if I'm wrong, you chose to study at FAU before all this, right? Or during? Okay.
No, I was actually enrolled at Palm Beach State. I was going to get my bachelor's in health management. I do work in healthcare. And the way that trial and everything happened, I was like, I'm done. I dropped out of the program. I actually had to pay them back because I had got my grant. And I was just like, this isn't for me. And I enrolled at FAU, and I'm actually finishing like half of a semester early just because I've just kind of buckled into it.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So tell us like what happened in terms of your, like how this basically unfolded in your life. Like what went down here?
In 2021, my husband was involved in an incident. It was a shooting amongst two people, self-defense case. In the state of Florida, you have to stand your ground. If that doesn't work, you're going before a jury, and you leave it up to the jury to figure out how they roll. That's kind of what happened here. My husband was sentenced under 1020 life to a mandatory minimum of 20 years. Prior to that, he was shot during the incident 13 times. And after that, life was kind of focused on him recovering. So he was in the hospital for 2 months. 1 month of that was him actually in a coma. After that, he had to learn to walk again. He had a feeding tube for a very long time, so he lost a lot of weight. Was very skinny. He couldn't have any food by mouth because he had a trach. So just was in a very unhealthy state. He was able to come. So that happened in September. Right before Thanksgiving happened, he was ready to come home, and he got to come home. And I remember being terrified because I went to go pick up his medicine on the first day, and they were like, "We have to teach you how to administer Narcan if something was to happen." So I was just like traumatized. I was like, I don't think, like, how can I do this? He was sent home on 12 medications. So it was just very, very hard situation overall. And prior to any of this, I wanted to be a nurse. Like, I literally worked at a hospital, my first job at a trauma hospital. I was like, I love all of this. And then seeing it firsthand, I was like, absolutely not. So he got healthy. He was able to get back on track with life, got a job again. We had a baby. And about 2 years later, sheriffs were knocking on our door with a warrant for his arrest. In the middle of that time, we had no idea that anything was going on, that he was being looked at as the bad guy in this. And yeah, so we went through court. It was a very rough situation for me, just kind of like seeing how things play out. And so, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, it's like there's so many layers to it, but it's even more like, I think, shocking because it was like there was a time period where you guys were like literally recovering from this incident and moved on finally. Like, you finally had your baby and like life was like looking good again. And then suddenly it's like, what? So when you said 13 times, like, what can you talk a little bit more about like what happened?
So he was in the car when he got shot. He was in the car trying to leave the scene. He shot first. The other guy was holding his gun, clutching on the gun. My husband shot first, jumped in the car to leave. The car that he had at the time, I have it now, so I know what happened. If you don't, because the first time I drove, I was like, what? If you don't put the car in park and the door is open, it's going to go into emergency brake and the car stalls. And that's what happened. So he did not get away. And the guy emptied his full clip into the vehicle. So imagine if you're sitting in a car and somebody comes up to the window and the door and completely shoots it. So he was shot from the leg up 13 times. He suffered many injuries, so he had to have a full Whipple. His face, he has permanent paralysis in his face. He's completely deaf in the left ear, just like a lot of things, a lot of injuries. And then he was unable to get away. The other car, they got away, and they took their friend to the hospital. All these people were once friends. So I think in court, how it kind of played out is the only evidence, the only thing that was against him is statements. And at the end of the day, when it's 4 against 1, no matter how many times their story changed or any of that, that's ultimately what it came down to, is how I feel.
Yeah. Despite the injuries is what you're saying.
Yeah. Despite everything. It actually
because the other person sounds like they didn't get injured.
He had a broken clavicle. That's it.
And it was like one shot?
Yeah.
That is shocking to me, but like, obviously it's not that I don't believe it or anything. Right. It's just crazy that that's something that it's because there's always, the instructions that say like it's not the quantity of the evidence, it's the quality of evidence. And you probably sat through the whole trial and watched it, I'm assuming.
And I don't like when you say quantity and quality, I think, because a lot of my friends came and I would ask them like, take him being my spouse, take him out of it. Like, you hearing all this, like, how do you perceive this? And all of them are like, no, like, he does not deserve this. And it's like, even down to the stand your ground hearing versus how much their statements, obviously, the closer you get to trial, everybody
cleans it up.
Their story's all the same. Prior to that, nobody had the same story. And that was actually what the detective said. In the beginning, she couldn't make an arrest because nobody had the same story.
That came out during trial.
Yeah, that was in her statement. That was even in one of the videos we got during discovery. The guy was like, I just don't understand. I don't understand. You don't understand what? Why? Nobody has the same story, And he was like, if they would just, and he would freeze. Like, if they would just, like that. When she was telling him, I can't do anything because nobody has the same story. And then one guy was actually able to come in 9 months later and give a statement. So 9 months after the fact, which nobody in their first statement mentioned him being there at all. Not one time. Whether it was the victim or the other people that were there, the witnesses, nobody said he was there. 9 months later, he was able to say he was there. And one time, the victim did tell the officer, I tried to convince him to come, but he doesn't want to be involved. And he was like, but I told him if he's my friend, he has to do this. And the guy didn't come in. And then 9 months later, he showed up. And his story was the only one that kind of corroborated with the victims.
And like, they didn't take your husband's statement. They just came and arrested him.
No, they gave him a statement. So in the hospital, they took a statement. And then after the detective was like, I'm going to meet you to give you your belongings. Obviously, she says, I have a warrant for your DNA. And then, do you want to tell me anything? That was it. And then she was asking him about that one person the 9 months later. You don't remember this person being there? He's like, no, I don't remember this person being there. And she asked like 3 times. Again, we're not knowing any better. We've never been in trouble with the law. So we're just like, this is going to be what it is. And you're going to get my story. And that's it. Not knowing any better. Still, time went on and that's how it happened.
And so you talked a little bit about the legal procedure of what happened to follow. Mm-hmm. So just to explain a little bit further, a stand your ground hearing is before a court, before a judge, and it's a mini trial, right? Where they present evidence. The defense files this motion, presents the evidence that this person was standing their ground, i.e. defending themselves, which means it was justifiable use of force, deadly force or non-deadly force. And if you present your case, and the state has to rebut this. And so oftentimes, especially with more serious cases, whether it's like an attempted murder or an aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, judges are more inclined, I think, to deny these types of hearings because of like kind of the risk that is associated with that charge. But when it comes to trial, and that's another thing, it's like really has a lot to do with the jury. And so it's a lot of the same evidence that's presented. And I think, Lyric, that's what you're referring to when you're talking about like the different statements. Like, sounds like the stand your ground was a little bit more inconsistent than the actual trial.
Yeah, so with the stand your ground, I think things were presented a little bit better, but a jury's not there to see it. The judge did rule, although he wasn't able to use stand your ground, that he was able to claim self-defense. So, at the time we're thinking, okay, maybe he sees something. One of the things I do have a big problem with is the lack of discretion the judges are allowed to have within this, when it comes to the mandatory minimums. So once you pass that stand your ground state, then it's like, okay, the judge, even if he heard all of this and he doesn't, there's nothing he can do.
Because there's mandatory sentencing in a case like this, that's where that 20 years comes into play because the gun went off and struck somebody during the course of committing an offense. So that's where we get the 10-20 life. Yeah. And that's unfortunate because, that the discretion of the judge at sentencing is done.
And it's like, it's not to justify or say, but I think when you weigh everything of this case and you hear, even the 13 versus the 1, and it's not to say one is right, one is wrong or anything like that. First offense, your first time ever. It's just, to me, it's insane that this person, and technically it should have been 25 if we're following the law, but the jury found that he did not cause any permanent damage or bodily injury.
Significant injury, yeah.
Excuse me, I think I misspoke. I think the 10-20 life is if you strike them while in the incident. So the jury must have just found that the gun went off, but he didn't cause any serious bodily injury. Okay. So that's where the 20 comes in as opposed to it being an even worse situation.
Yeah.
Got it.
So he was able to get sentenced to 20. But it kind of sucked because, just sitting back and being a judge, like I don't know about other judges, but if I was in his shoes, and you hear all this, it almost seems like, because technically what he scored out to, I think was 8 years, like something. And it's like, okay, that seems more understandable. Whereas if this person is a career criminal and he shot 5 people, I understand. Okay, 20 years, that's justifiable. I think that's okay. But I hate the fact that the discretion is not there because not every case is black and white. So when you put a mandatory minimum on this, it kind of just makes it crappy.
So in terms of the going through the process, and I know for you, you felt like maybe you were biased because this is your husband, right? You're like, yeah, maybe I'm not seeing something. Yes. Someone tell me what is going on. Does he really seem as guilty as the state is painting this picture? So in terms of the process, because this is I don't know how long was it that you guys were dealing with this, pre-trial?
So he actually got released on house arrest, which that was a nightmare within itself. But he was on house arrest for about a year. So when he got arrested, I think it was January. The following year is kind of when we went to trial in February.
Okay, so it was about a year.
In my opinion, I think it happened really fast because I think there's some cases that are
take longer,
drug cases.
There are way less serious cases that I know of right now that are going on
longer,
for longer than that.
And then it's you hear when you tell other people, they're like, "Oh my God, he was a sacrificial lamb," and da da da. They just, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, just leave me alone."
Yeah, you're I don't want to hear this. Yeah.
You ask the wrong person, and they're going to tell you there's a conspiracy theory happening, right? Yeah, which is not the case, but right.
But, there's so many depots that happen. There's a lot of investigating, going to the crime scene.
Even down to that, the depot. So I promise you, it's their initial statements, the depot that our attorney did, to stand your ground, down to trial. every statement, it was a different statement every time, and nobody's statement matched till we got to trial. And even then, there were still some discrepancies. But again,
and they're like, oh, well, it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you give it to a jury, and I think a lot of, when it comes down to juries, like a lot of it is perception. You hear guns, you hear stuff, and it's like automatically, this is a bad guy. One lady was falling asleep, literally like nodding off the whole time, and we're like telling them like, she's falling asleep, she's not paying attention. I think just seeing the people that we were getting as possible jurors, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, you're like,
it's a
these are the
nightmare.
people I'm trusting with
So anytime
my
I have a friend, they're like, I don't want to go. I'm like, you better go.
Yes.
You have to go.
Yeah.
This is why it's important. Like, you saw this happen to me. You have to go.
Yeah. We had a jury selection episode, and I was like, the people that don't want to like go to jury duty are what's wrong with the world, because I feel the same way. I feel so deeply about it. I'm like, it triggers me when I see people falling asleep in jury selection.
It was mostly older women, and they probably are retired.
Yeah, they can't relate to this life.
And that's the thing. So it was considered to be like black on black crime. We didn't have one black person in our juror. It's not a juror of your peers. We didn't have one young person. And it's like, I know people think that doesn't matter that much, but
it does.
You win and lose trials with the jury. I mean, you really can.
And the whole start of like all of them getting together was like to mourn a friend. So it's like, obviously there's liquor and there's weed involved, but it's like these old ladies are like,
yeah, like liquor and weed.
Yeah, somebody just died. Like that's and it's like that's just what young people do, I guess. I don't know. It's like it's crappy, but the reality of things is just like people don't realize really what goes into it, and seeing it firsthand. Like that's what really woke me up. That's what made me just be like, oh my God. Like, just how easy this happened to me. Like, I can see how other people get railroaded or just end up with, like, really crappy sentences. And, and it's not to say, like, even in the work I do, there are people that do deserve to be in prison and deserve to be there for a long time. I am an advocate, and I will always advocate, but, like, I'm not going to just say free everybody out of prison. No, like, I'm realistic. I do think that there just needs to be things in moderation and, like, discretion. I think it's really important.
How was like the process with like pre-trial for you and for him, like negotiations with the state, and then seeing kind of, seeing what the offer was and like the risk and making that decision and like, going through that process kind of behind the scenes, because oftentimes we are the kind of bearer of bad news, and we're like, hey, this is what you're facing. If you lose, this is the minimum. And the state is offering this. It's not what we wanted, but it's better than the worst case scenario or the best case scenario if we lose.
So the defense attorney, us, anybody that we talked to that saw everything in the case, would hear the stories, like everybody was just like, no, you have a really good chance at self-defense. Like, this is a really good, it's 50-50, but I believe that this is strong, because I'd be like, give it to me. Blood raw, like if you think that he was 100% wrong and wasn't defending himself, like tell me. Don't lead me to believe.
Did you know that you can buy your car completely online on AutoTrader? Really? Just visit autotrader.com, filter and search through dealer listings for the car you want, make, model, color, and all the features that matter to you. Go ahead, get picky. Whether you're into subcompacts with heated cup holders, crossovers with all-wheel drive, pickups with kicking sound systems, or SUVs that can survive whatever chaos your kids unleash. Just drop in your info and you'll only see cars in your budget. Really. Once you find your one and only, you can do the whole deal online and have the car delivered to your driveway. Or you can pick it up at the dealership and drive your new ride right off the lot. Really. AutoTrader makes it easy to buy your car online because the whole process is designed around your wants and must-haves. AutoTrader. Buy your car online. Really.
That we have a chance at this. And it was very much like, no, this is 50-50. And I understand like a prosecutor's job is to protect and abide by what the victim wants. I understand that. And I've been saying victim, but I want to say alleged victim. But
I say alleged victim.
Yeah,
I say alleged victim all the time.
But I understand that, especially with Marxist law, I get all of that. But I think also to hear what would aggravate me about this is like, okay, as the prosecutor, it's like you're able to see both sides of things.
You should be able to.
Like, yeah, like basically,
BFFR.
Okay, give us a reasonable plea. Because the plea on the table was 10 years in prison, 5 years on paper. And he was willing to do 5. And he didn't even, and that was me, like basically like okay, what is the lowest that you, like, what would you be willing to accept? First, I don't want to do any time, like, understandable. And I would say, like, okay, we have to come up with a number. And he was just like, I really just don't think I deserve to go to prison. Like, you get what I'm saying? And I was like, I understand, but okay, we need to be realistically. So we were willing to do 5. They wouldn't budge because the alleged victim wasn't willing to budge.
Who was his old friend?
Yeah.
He wanted him to go to prison.
Yes. And one of the guys actually, so like the person that called him there, he's the one that called 911. Didn't ever say that my husband was there. Didn't say there was another person. He said it was a drive-by shooting. Never mentioned that other.
He didn't know who to snitch on. He didn't want to snitch on anybody.
Never admitted that there was a person there dying. It was in a neighborhood, so the neighborhood actually are the ones that rendered aid to my husband. Yeah, called the ambulance for him. That guy said it was a drive-by shooting. They didn't know who the other people were. He wanted no involvement. And then later on, just like everybody's story just kind of like turned around. Just, he was high out of his mind when on his standing ground, like his deposition, he was like nodding off and they're like, are you okay? I took oxycodone. And I'm just like, this can't be for real. Like, this is what we're going through right now, and it's just like, how do we perceive these people as credible at all in any shape or form, So I kind of just was aggravated, like that the prosecution just seeing everything for what it is, like, be reasonable.
I think a lot of prosecutors lack a backbone when it comes to dealing with victims. And I think they probably give more deference as the crimes get more serious. But at the same time, like what you're saying, it's like, do you see what's in front of you?
Yeah, and it's like, if this guy was so, like, in my opinion, you were so fearful, you ran at him to go empty your clip into him. If I'm scared, I'm
13
running
times
away. And he really shot 15. 2 of them didn't hit him because he emptied his whole entire clip. So you shot to kill. You get what I'm saying? I don't think the average person that's scared is going to do that. I think they're going to run away. I don't think I'm going to charge at the person that I'm scared of. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of other like factors that I was just like, okay, so we're not going to bring this up. They were all drinking prior. My husband wasn't. They were drinking prior to my husband getting there.
Those things were not
there
brought
was
up?
Text messages where they were saying F that N-word, talking about my husband. Things that it's like, that was just like turn the blind eye. Nobody cared.
Was that presented at trial?
Yeah.
A lot of things come down to like the jury.
Yeah.
Like it really is the makeup of the jury because the things you're saying, it's like, I don't know how this was the result.
And that's why I'm like, it's important to have a real jury of your peers. And this means like people that either come from the same background or even in the same age group. It doesn't even have to take race out of it. Just like same age group, at least something, And it's like, I know that they can only work with who shows up. I understand that too. But I think that it's so important to get a good jury or just at least reasonable, because at the end of the day, then you get this and you're stuck with whatever the outcome is. And you have the chance to appeal it. But realistically, how many people get relief from appeals? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not often. And that's the stage that we're in now. And it's like, even with the direct appeal, I think there's a 1% chance of you getting relief from that.
And even your relief is to be placed back in the same position you once were, which
just
is
hoping to get a better deal.
Yeah, to get a better deal.
Or a different trial, right?
But I told him, we did lose the direct appeal. And I was like, if we come back on the 3850, like, you better just take whatever they are willing to do, because now, we have our son, we have gone through this once. I don't want to live through that again. And one of the things that I think about now is if he would have taken the 10, realistically, you would have done 8 with good behavior, and you would be in your son's life at 8 opposed to when your son is 20. You know what I'm saying? So that was like the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
But you don't know any better at the time. You're thinking that people are going to hear this and they're going to see it for what it is, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's also not easy to think about a decade of time, and that you would be agreeing to a decade of time behind bars is not something that's an easy thought for anybody. I know I've had conversations where, and I've spoken to Monica, I had a case and I had a client that wound up accepting an offer to 20 years, and he scored 44 years. And it was a very different situation, but the concept of sitting down and having a conversation with somebody about spending decades of time in prison is one of the more difficult conversations that we have in our jobs. and probably one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had with somebody, because there's no way to relate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also no way to make the situation better than what it is at that point, because that's what you're facing. In the case that I had, and in your husband's case, the law is that many years is applicable. It's got, the prosecutor standing up and saying how much time, or the defense attorney standing up and saying how much time, or the judge. It's not relevant. It's not important, because the statute is what it is. But that's so difficult to, be on the family side and sit there and have to live through all that. That's a brutal process. And I can't even imagine as a spouse, first off, the strength it takes for you to be able to sit through all of that and, now carry the mantle of your family is just, really props to you, because it takes a very strong person to be able to do that and to be able to carry on, and also to be able to work in the field that is related to what you went through is a really, really powerful thing. I have never spoken about it on the show before, but I have a relative that has been incarcerated before, and I'm not particularly close with that relative, but it's an immediate member of my family. And the idea of being a family member in that position, there are so many emotions that you go through, whether it's the, fear or sadness or your own guilt in the situation for whatever reason, is a lot to deal with and a lot to bear. It takes a very strong person to be able to do what you're doing. So, that's just very important to say and mention.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually participated in therapy not too long ago, and it was through another nonprofit, 300 Letters, and it was basically for the caregivers of children with an incarcerated parent. So I participated in that, and one of the sessions was about having any type of resentment. And I was like, no, not at all. And then I think later on in the night, I was just like, I think I do, and I wasn't realizing it. And I told him, and I was just like, now being where we are, I just wish you would have taken the deal, but at that time when you're thinking, and it's and I would tell him, I can't force you to make any decision because I'm not going to be the one doing that time. So I can't say, hey, this. And then it's what if he did take the 10 and we would have had a different set of jurors and he would have gotten free, you don't know how the cards are going to roll out. So it sucks. So then I just had to talk with him about it. And I was like, listen, if we get any type of relief, we're not going to trial. Just want you to know, you're taking whatever they give you, and that's it.
Hindsight's always 20/20. It's always easier to say, looking back now, I would have, we should have done this, but there was no way for you to know. You guys did the best with what you had.
Right.
So.
And you don't know when you've never been in trouble, you've never had run-in, you never needed a lawyer for anything. You just don't know, you don't know at all.
Yeah. How has life been for you since this?
I will say, despite obviously having, I think in this economy, you need a 2-person household or 2 jobs. I do have 2 jobs, but I think it's really important to, I now have a son, and I'm it's hard to raise a boy to be a man. He's only 2, but I think about, 20 years, how am I going to raise him to be a good man? I don't want him to be a mama's boy. I don't want to enable him. There's certain things, and I'm he needs a man for that. As much as people think oh, moms can do it all, no, I think especially with boys, they need that male figure. Despite that, I think life has been really good to me besides missing him.
Did you know that you can buy your car completely online on AutoTrader? Really? Just visit autotrader.com, filter and search through dealer listings for the car you want, make, model, color, and all the features that matter to you. Go ahead, get picky. Whether you're into subcompacts with heated cup holders, crossovers with all-wheel drive, pickups with kicking sound systems, or SUVs that can survive whatever chaos your kids unleash. Just drop in your info and you'll only see cars in your budget. Really. Once you find your one and only, you can do the whole deal online and have the car delivered to your driveway. Or you can pick it up at the dealership and drive your new ride right off the lot. Really. AutoTrader makes it easy to buy your car online because the whole process is designed around your wants and must-haves. AutoTrader. Buy your car online. Really.
I've grown within my profession. I've still been able to maintain my home, my kids, whereas a lot of people don't have the ability, or, life could have really knocked me down. But I just you have to keep going. I do have kids, and I can't give up. I can't let my life fall apart. I have to just be strong. So I just had no choice but to. And also for him, like he's stuck in there all day. And so it's like sometimes he's like, I know that you like hold it all together and you never want to tell me you're going through anything. But it's like, I don't want to burden how I feel on him either, because he has nothing to do but go back and sit on his bunk and
think about basically
and fight within himself.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're already in such like crappy circumstances. It's like, we talk about things and stuff like that, but I don't try to like put it on. And honestly, I don't think about it in a negative way. Like I try to keep faith and hope that like this is going to turn around for the better good. He's gotten, which I know there is like a stereotype that a lot of people go to prison and then they find their faith and, they get closer to God. So that's happened for him.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. He's trying to actually go to college through Miami-Dade. So like,
amazing.
I'm just like, hey, if that's what look,
do what you can.
While you're there.
Take advantage of the opportunities.
Because it's harder to go through school when you're home and you're working, you have kids. Like I'm doing it, so it's like, just do what you can while you're there, whereas I feel like statistically, on average, somebody that got sentenced to 20 years, they're not going to go in and be a good person and be good and not, like that just goes to show the kind of person he is. Like he has zero involvement with gangs. He says to me all the time that like the older guys are always like, I've never met anybody young that literally acts the way you act, like you carry yourself like an old man, because he's just not into drama. He's not doing anything, he does and he's found himself like, like the law clerks and the guys that do the legal work, and that really has evolved for him. So he's making the best of it for what he has. So
sounds like you have too.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's amazing. Hopefully the appeal comes back. I'm like praying.
Thank you.
So one thing I did want to touch upon is that you said there is still currently an appeal going on, and you mentioned that there was previously. So when everything first happened, you did an appeal, and that was unsuccessful. You've done another appeal now that's pending.
So we're in the process of right now his appellate attorney is working on all the grounds for the 3850. That's in process of being the next appeal. It hasn't technically been filed yet, but right now he's looking for all the grounds. The direct appeal, because it was unsuccessful, he's kind of now what he's doing is like the law clerks are really helping him, because he's like, a lot of times, and even our trial attorney, like these guys sometimes know more and better than the guys, us representing you at trial court, because this is what they're doing day in and day out. So right now he's just been working with the law clerks to try to find every possible ground that he can for the next type of relief, because once, that's your last chance unless you go to the higher courts. I don't know if people have some success from that. I don't know. What have you,
and if you don't want to answer this, I totally understand. We can just skip over it. But like, what have you talked to your son about, like this situation?
So he just turned 3 recently. I think I said 2 earlier.
Yeah.
I'm a liar. He doesn't know. Yesterday, he actually was telling me and my daughter, he was like, my daddy's a police officer and he's going to arrest you guys. I'm like, oh, quite the opposite. But he was like, he's a blue police officer, because, they wear the blue. So I was like, okay, whatever.
That's so funny.
But he's 3, he doesn't know. My daughter, she knows. She doesn't change anything. She has the best time when she goes there.
Yeah.
He is at a better facility, so he is allowed to like play soccer. They have toys. We can play football, certain things that it's like you don't have that luxury at other facilities. So I am very grateful for that, because, you're not just confined to sitting inside and staring at each other. You do get to get outside and get active, but I don't want you to think that that's the reality of it.
It's not. Yeah.
So we are just grateful for him to be at this.
How old's your daughter?
She's 9.
Oh, okay. So she is older.
Yeah.
And so you don't like you. Do you feel like
this story? She kind of she doesn't know the time. She does not know how long. She constantly is like, well, when is he coming home? And I'm like, I don't know. And then, she asked, why is he there? And I was just like, I'm going to leave that for him to tell you. And then when she asked him, he's like, ask your mom. So it's like one of those things. She leaves it alone. Like we always say, she's like a flower child. She doesn't really, everything's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't care. She likes to go because of vending machine. She wants to have the
she's just a kid.
Candies. She could care less.
What would you tell other families that are like maybe going through that process, like actively, like similar to what you went through?
I would say you have to definitely hold on to faith and strength, whether it's for yourself, your children, or even for your spouse. Like the both of you, and it could be roles reversed, or even a mother and a son. Like you have to be one, and it's not always going to be you're strong in that moment, you may break and you may need the other person to uplift you. But I think acting as one is very important, and just lifting each other up and being the strength of the other person when the other person isn't able to. I think it's really important, because if you don't have a strong mind, even for him, if you're not strong-minded, like, you won't survive.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people do look to drugs in there, because you don't have strength, you don't have any of that, you don't want to feel what you're feeling, so you're going to look for something else. So I would say that's the strongest point, and just don't give up. Like, you can't. Life isn't always butterflies and rainbows. It does suck sometimes, but I think as long as you try and you keep fighting, and even if we do lose the appeal, which I don't want to say that, or, think that that's reality, I wouldn't give up on my drive or my passion, because it's like, when I got into this, what really pushed me to kind of advocate in the level that I am now is I went to the Palm Beach County Reentry Summit, and just hearing some of the story, I cried every day. They had a speaker. Everybody's story made me cry, and I was just like, this is what I want to do, Probably not going to leave my 9 to 5, because that's where I make my money. But you just hear so many stories, and like, a lot of crappy things happen to people, and they made it out, and they survived, and they've turned their life around. And, I know that's not everybody's story, but there are a lot of stories that are success stories, and they have been able to redeem themselves, and they aren't their sentence,
Yeah.
I think that's what really made it more real for me, is just seeing like so many other people's story being similar.
That you're not alone in this.
Right.
And a part of the conversation that I have with my clients sometimes is saying, like, this is not, like, I know it's so hard to grasp, like, what I'm telling you, but like, if you just zoom out just a little bit, there's life after this.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I'm telling you that, like, it's not a life sentence. You know what I mean? You're not in there forever. It's those conversations are just so hard to have. And like, because you, like, just exactly what Brandon was saying, like, you can only relate so much, but you're also bearing the news. So it's just a lot to carry. But since his incarceration, or sentence, I should say, have you like grown a passion towards like prison reform?
Yes. I think aside from being involved with reentry, I actually got involved with another reentry nonprofit through school. I had to do an internship. So I found another one. He actually offered me a position through there. So now I'm with 2. But I would say my heart, because I'm going through it now, is definitely within the prison system. I think there is such a lack of everything within our prison system. There's no true rehabilitation. The only way for you to rehabilitate is and that's not to say everybody needs it, because sometimes it is a one-time mistake. And I mean, you make mistakes every day, all day. At work, you may mess up. Does that cost you, sometimes it may cost you your job if it's a big one, but I don't think it costs you like so many years away from your life. And not to say that these two things are the same, but one mistake doesn't define you and doesn't say you need rehabilitation. No. But I do think that our system lacks that big time, especially for people that are repeat offenders. That's another thing I hate from the mandatory minimums, is there's people in there with life sentences under PRR, never killed anybody, never taken a life, never done anything, like never even caused harm to somebody.
Because of sentencing enhancements. Yeah, we've talked about that before.
It's crappy. And that's another thing where I don't know how much discretion there is there, because I've never witnessed that first time. So it's like, it's crappy, and then it's like, just recently, the Secretary, Ricky Dixon, went up and said how he needs like all this money basically for Department of Corrections to survive and go any further, because it's falling apart. The staff, they're low in staff. And aside from that, it's just, they cannot continue to go in the way that they are going. But it's like, okay, so why don't we truly rehabilitate these people so they don't come back? We give them real resources. We give them real skill. We give them something so that they don't come back. Because realistically, some people go into prison and they're worse than when they went in. Because, you learn to survive. You have to. Some people feel like they have to join a gang. Some people feel like, well, my kids are out here alone. I have to sell drugs in here. Some people genuinely feel that way. And it's unfortunate, but that's what we're teaching them. Like, that's what we're allowing to go on there. Not to say that's going on, like, because of it's being allowed, but that is what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that rehabilitation, and I know it's punishment first.
Yeah.
Rehabilitate after, but there is no true rehabilitation going on, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's frustrating when you hear like prosecutors cite that case law because it's like, it's 2025, well, almost 2026. And like, we have moved on. Like the times have changed. We have more information now.
Yeah.
And like, clearly what we're doing is not working and we're enabling worse behavior. Like we're enabling bad behavior. And then the worst behavior that is like making the entire cycle vicious. So I completely agree with you. And it's the answer is that it's because that's not the way that the state is set up to make money. It's
and
all
the
about
numbers. So that was part of his statement too, is like the number of people incarcerated. But it's like, okay, we have majority of the individuals incarcerated are geriatric. A lot of them have life sentences. Some of them, yeah, they may not deserve to get out. I'm not going to say that they do. There are some that they're in the infirmary and it looks like they're already on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Let these people go home. Free up some of these beds. You get what I'm saying? Like the number of people that are in there and
the resources,
life sentences, and it's just like that's where most of DOC's money is going.
Yeah.
To these patients, whether it's medical care, anything like that. Like, and then it's being taken from other areas or it's not being applied in other areas like education. I think education is huge because how are you going to get a job if you can't read or write? How do you fill out an application? There's
they
certain
don't set
things,
you up for any of
there's
that.
such a huge lack of, and if you go tour or you hear about a facility that goes into the prison, they're going to tell you they do all of that.
It's Disney World.
Yeah. We help them with job placement. We help them with do that. Okay. That's not real. It's not really how it's happening.
Well, you do clean up your house before you have visitors come over. So, that is the way. You're not going to show off the worst when you have visitors over. But yeah, the point remains. It's not the actual day to day. There is not sunshine and rainbows, as I like to say.
Yeah.
Another thing I forgot to say is when we did lose trial, the bailiff actually walked us out and he was like, I'm so sorry and I feel so sorry for you guys. And he was like, but anything that I've ever, and he heard it from start to finish, but I want you to know that if anything this job has taught me is the good ones always get basically effed over. And the ones that deserve it are the ones that
get away with things.
So it's like, and that's to show like this person who knows neither side, knows nothing. Look at.
Yeah, because they sit through the whole trial. That was probably very frustrating to hear right after hearing the verdict.
It didn't like bother me, but it just showed me like, so how could the jury see it the way that they did? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Especially because I think jurors, this is what I don't like is jurors, we're all going off perception and emotion. They're not going off the law. As a juror, you don't know the law. Yeah, it's on that piece of paper, but you think you're going back like, okay, he has to have done this, and this is that.
That's what they hope, yeah.
You're going off your feelings, and I don't like the way he looks, or I don't like what they said he did, and that's it. So.
That's crazy, because if I heard paralyzed, deaf, 13 shots, I would have been like, that would have been all I needed to hear.
Seems like that's enough of a punishment to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that's what kind of upset me with the alleged victim is kind of just like, okay, so you're telling me he tried to take my head off. He tried to kill me. He did this. He did that. And it's like, okay, so but then you turned around and you try to do that. And I don't know if it was a situation where he thought, okay, it's going to be me or it's going to be him. I don't know if that's but I think he persisted and just was crying and constantly, like, I think the prosecutors were even annoyed with him because of how, like, that one of those comments were made to our attorney because of the way he was acting. So I think it was a bit of that. But at the same time, I just feel like, okay, so say you want to think of like an eye for an eye. Like, don't you think you guys are even? But.
And it's just, I don't know. That's why I was like, and this guy used to be friends with him. Yeah. So it's like, just part ways.
I think that's what came down to it too with like the other guys is like, ultimately when something happens like this, either you stay out of it or you have to pick a side. Yeah. And I think they picked the side. It just sucks, because this affected somebody's life.
Not just his, I mean, his entire family.
Yeah.
Right, everybody.
So
what your husband does and what people do in theory, but how do you keep it all together? Like, how do you day to day? I know you said you touched upon like therapy and you touched upon, I don't know if you also are religious, but like, what do you do to keep yourself together?
I think faith definitely holds me together, but I guess because I have no choice but to hold it together. I have 2 small children. I still have to provide for them. I still have to show up every day. So I kind of don't let myself get to, even if there comes a time and I'm like, okay, you spend your whole weekend in the bed. Like, you got to get up. Life keeps going. And it's just kind of how I've been just my whole life, even aside from this. Like, it's going to keep going, and you have to get up every day and you have to show up. And this perspective kind of it's gotten me far. I've gotten promoted at my job twice since my husband's been incarcerated. So my strength, everything, my ability to keep showing up, keep applying. I don't give up. I don't let hard times, my big boss, constantly when I finally told the truth, because it's not embarrassing, but you're going to be judged. And that was kind of one of the things that a lot of people, you don't want to tell people, because then it's you have to say, well, he was sentenced to 20 years, but he didn't kill anybody. That's literally what I had to tell my boss when I told him, because I was like, he didn't kill anyone. I just want you to know, because you feel the need to defend him automatically. But he tells me all the time, I don't know how you show up here every day, you do the things that you do. And it's it's hard, don't get me wrong, but you have no choice. So I don't say I have a big physical support system, but I do have a good mental support system. Even my friends showing up to trial, and, in those ways. I do eyelashes too. So that's my side hustle, because you got to have two jobs in this economy. So most of my friends, I get to see them every 2 weeks, every so often. They all come get their lashes in. So it's that's my therapy. That's what, keeps me in good spirits, and I'm able to keep going. But definitely my kids and my husband too. He's we don't fight. We never did, even when he was home. Even I was okay, did you have a bad day today? I'm no, I'm just, I don't know, I'm blah, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. But it's life sometimes it just gets there, but you just can't let it beat you down.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if only more people had your strength, that's really amazing. So we should plug your lash what
plug
how
all your
everything.
businesses,
How
yeah.
can
It's okay because I'm from home, so I don't
Okay, she doesn't want strangers there. So
yeah.
How can we support you? What can we do? I know you said you collaborate with 300 Letters.
Yeah. So 300 Letters, the Victory Program, and People of Purpose, I work with those two. 300 Letters I connected because of my own story.
Right. So we can contribute financially for your family.
Yeah, to any of those three.
Okay. So we'll drop the links then. I'll get them. I think I have the 300 Letters one, but I don't have the other two. I can pull them.
And then I do have my own advocacy Instagram. It's called It's Lyric White on Instagram. So that I made, I think the same night I attended the reentry summit. I was oh my God, this is what I want to do.
That's amazing.
So that's what I've been doing. I think once I finish school, I graduate in December, I actually hated methods of research, hated it so much. But I think that I want to write a research paper on mandatory minimums. So I think that I'm going to put my focus on that once I finish school. I'm just trying to get that out of the way.
Very cool.
Thank you. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see where it takes me. I definitely want to continue advocating. I think we need real change. There's a lack of just everywhere in our system.
I find oftentimes the places in life where we feel it's the worst scenario or the worst situation that could happen to us, it ends up changing the complete trajectory of our entire lives. And then we end up in a place that's maybe the journey is not easy because it's obviously not, it's been rough, but getting to the point where you're I understand now why I went through such a hard time or why this all happened. And it just gives you kind of more perspective. And then you're okay, it gives you that validation too. I am where I'm supposed to be too. And I feel I don't know. I feel it's going to be, it is manifesting in this way, your passions and where you're going and what you're doing, writing a paper on, I love that because sentencing laws in Florida, I don't know about anywhere else because this is where we practice obviously, but the enhancements and the minimum mandatories, I totally agree with you. It's crazy that people are serving longer sentences for things that are on paper sound much worse than what actually went down versus other people that have committed worse acts that are they're out of custody. There's a lot of discrepancies and disparities and it's always been a thing. But
I also think that will help with the population. These horrible enhancements or PR and all these things that are forcing to give these harsh sentences, okay, well that right there will help your population. I understand at the end of the day, DOC, it's going to operate like a business. I get that, not taking away from that, but I think it's okay, if you want this to change, people aren't going to stop going to prison realistically. They're going to keep going, but give them real rehabilitation. Our sentencing laws, they don't need to be so strict. Trust me, like I said, some people deserve to be there and some people don't deserve to get out. I'm okay with that, but I think it's the things that warrant it.
Yeah.
That needs to be the case, not just because some of these guys that I've, where my husband is, they have a lifers program. Some of these guys were 20, 18, 19, barely becoming adult. And it's like for committing burglary and, you know, not to say it's good or it's okay, but now these people are 40 years old, 50 years old. They're not that person that they were before.
Yeah.
And they have no chance of coming home. So it's like, it sucks. It really sucks. So one day I told myself when I got involved with this, I'm like, if I can just make the difference in one life, like I will feel accomplished, like I did something. So that's why I just want to keep advocating. I want to just keep doing whatever it is I can. Mandatory minimums is a big thing for me. Like when he first got sentenced, I reached out to FAM, which is Families Against Mandatory Minimums. It's a huge organization. I haven't found like any success because what they kind of do is like, I think they do a lot of work in other states, but I think they kind of know how Florida operates.
Yeah.
Because there is no real like relief, I would say, going on. They really refer you to another organization, but that organization doesn't work on mandatory minimums. They basically just work on helping those that are incarcerated, basically within the prison system, like mistreatment, phones aren't working, things like that. There's no real relief, I think, going on. Like there's nobody fighting here for it.
Yeah. But I think, like, honestly, just sharing your story, I know, like, you want to do more, and I think you will do more in your, advocacy, but I think sharing your story with people, like, who need to hear your story is probably changing people's lives. So I think it's amazing that you're, like, putting yourselves in probably, it's not comfortable, right? Like, to share this.
I was telling one of the girls at work, and she's like, what if people at work see it? I'm like, at this point, I don't even care, you know, because I don't go around, like, vocally saying, yeah, my husband's in prison. You know, I don't tell people I'm closer to, they know, you know, but I don't shy away from it either if asked. It's just that you, like I said, you feel the need to like defend or you feel guilty as if, you know, but it's like, that's not the reality of things, you know, like people, again, they make mistakes.
Also, people are just ignorant to the system.
Yeah.
So when they hear 20 years and prison, they assume the worst of the worst. And it's like, if you have even like 2% knowledge of what's going on and what happens in a courtroom, you would probably know that there's probably more to the story than just that this person committed a bad act.
Right. And I think a lot of it is like out of sight, out of mind. If they don't know, if it's never affected them, they don't know. And this person's a criminal and they're a piece of crap. And that's it. That's all they know. What's going to keep them pushing.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lyric. We are definitely going to plug everything into the show notes. So please, if you could support our girl Lyric and her family, we'll drop all the links in the show notes where you can send some donations. And we will also drop the Victory Program's information in the show notes. If you liked listening to this episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our newsletter. We are Come Back with a Warrant.pod on all social media platforms. And if you didn't like listening to us,
come back with a warrant.
Did you know that you can buy your car completely online on AutoTrader? Really? Just visit autotrader.com, filter and search through dealer listings for the car you want, make, model, color, and all the features that matter to you. Go ahead, get picky. Whether you're into subcompacts with heated cup holders, crossovers with all-wheel drive, pickups with kicking sound systems, or SUVs that can survive whatever chaos your kids unleash. Just drop in your info and you'll only see cars in your budget. Really. Once you find your one and only, you can do the whole deal online and have the car delivered to your driveway. Or you can pick it up at the dealership and drive your new ride right off the lot. Really. AutoTrader makes it easy to buy your car online because the whole process is designed around your wants and must-haves. AutoTrader. Buy your car online. Really.